what up, Tech Hustle? What up, fam? What up, everyone? Thank y'all for tuning in this episode of the Tech Hustle Backstage with Bobby, your boy Bobby D. What's good with you? Now, a conversation I was having earlier today with a mentee of mine was really explaining to her the differences in type of engineers that are very, how can I say, high level and or impactful to the reliability of systems that we build. One of the things that you'll quickly realize about me is that number one, I have wealth of stories to tell. I'm a motivational speaker and definitely feel inspired every time I turn on the camera and I can make somebody smile and feel motivated to pursue their next ambitious ideas. But the thing that most of the things that I provide in terms of just my mentees in those type of spaces is to also explain to them about my journey so that they can feel more enlightened on the things that they can achieve. Now, thinking about my journey and thinking about being an engineer and specifically a site reliability engineer is what I was explaining to her, really gave me an opportunity to think of different ways to explain the skill set, but more or less hopefully inspire you to pursue the specific skill set around site reliability engineering, because there are not a lot of site reliability engineers that look like me. And especially with the skill sets that you need, it does take you a few years to develop all of those all of the skills that you need to have, but I don't want to deter you and or take you away from what you can really achieve, because as a site reliability engineers, I've definitely always been in the idea that I have to learn and continue to learn, always looking at new ways of doing things, but also leaning on past experiences, because that's the true asset. We'll talk about that later. I like to always drop that little bit of information, but talking about site reliability engineering, more specifically, rereading one of the industry standard books around site reliability engineer published by Google, and technically the practice of site reliability engineer was founded at Google. I think it's a practice that's been around for a while, especially if you've been on the operations side and DevOps. But this really just changes the level and changes the mindset and changes the focuses, principles, goals, and things that engineers are focused on when they do have that specific title around site reliability engineering. Now, some organizations call it different. There's production engineers, there's site reliability engineers, or there's just regular software systems engineer that are supporting systems. And the way that I really break down site reliability engineer is that there are two skill sets that differentiate site reliability engineers from other type of engineers specifically, because you usually have two skill sets such as systems engineering and a combination with software engineering, or you have more of a software engineering background with the combination of systems engineering skill sets. Now, if you're not familiar with what systems engineering is or software engineering, because you might be new to the channel or just, found your way on my page, let me break those two things down real quickly. So, systems engineering is where I've achieved the level of, and I say this, freely, as a subject matter expert on designing systems from the ground up to service the world. Systems engineers really have a foundational understanding of how hardware works, how you build an operating system to run on there, how you connect one computer to the next computer, and ultimately servicing whatever processes or applications or tasks that are running on that computer for the API or customers on the other end, such as external customers, something on the internet, or internally, that's an internal application that's servicing the company. Now, systems engineers not only have systems in terms of computers understandings, but I also talked about networking, storage. I talked about just understanding how computers talk to each other, but also how do you store things across computers, because one computer can't store all the bits and you need to replicate some of them over here just in case something breaks. And all of those practices really fall under that umbrella of systems engineering. Now, there are network engineers, there are other type of engineers that have these specific skill set, but if you're looking at site reliability engineers, having a foundational understanding of systems engineering at the lowest level up to servicing an application, either hosting an application that services APIs externally or internally, like I explained before, but all that in between. Now, all that in between consists of so many things, because when I think of hardware engineering, I'm thinking of the lowest level. Like, I'm actually looking at what is this? A Pi. Like understanding components inside of this thing here. Like, small as components like this and understanding how all of these things work to installing an operating system on this and then actually servicing the world or API requests or anything. I mean, literally, this device itself can sit on the internet and be, very, resourceful in being able to service applications. But I mean, when you're talking about Twitter scale or scale of your organizations or companies, schools, or wherever you're at, they're definitely massive system and massive computers that we put together to make all that work together. So that's systems engineering, and I can go into even more details, but that's just a rough kind of explanation. That's from hardware up to servicing an app, and not designing apps, but making the app run reliably, and also designing systems so that if they do fail, the apps automatically work somewhere else. That's even more in depth. Now, as a software engineer, as a site reliability engineer with software engineering background, a lot of my times I'm spending time developing softwares to automate myself out of a job. I'm not writing software to design a front end, which some site reliability engineers may actually dabble in, or I'm not writing software to service some back-end data, but some site reliability engineers do. But my specific skill set in terms of what site reliability engineering I've done is designing systems or designing software to automate systems that either break or have some type of issue, or designing systems around monitoring and understand the reliability of the applications you all depend on, or designing systems to make a pipeline for you to deploy applications seamless, or designing systems so that when they fail, we always have some type of hidden mirror so that customers never really know that a system has failed. These are the different type of software engineering skill sets that I've developed over the years, more on infrastructure as code, understanding Python, Go, Java, getting down to C, core functionalities, even down into the kernel if we have to. But those specific skill sets are usually different than software engineers that are developing software engineering for applications, for front ends and things like that. But there are so many other software engineering things that you can do. But more specifically around site reliability engineer is taking those software engineering skill sets and putting them into practice to reduce toil, reduce challenges, and ultimately having the system be as reliable as it can. Another cool thing about being a site reliability engineer with software engineering skill set is that I get to check other software engineers. I mean, there's definitely been times where software engineers feel like the development of a specific application is going to be able to service the world, but then once I take a look at it, I see that you're using this library, I have this past experience with that library, I already know that it may not meet the bar that we need to service the world and or make it available at the defined SLO or SLI that the application is providing. So these are the things that, in terms of as a site reliability engineers, makes us a little different than most engineers, because we not just one lane in terms of just developing a feature or developing an application. We are looking at the whole system as a whole and architecting these systems or providing input on how to architect them in a way that's reliable to the services that we're providing. I know that might have been a lot in terms of just the difference between site reliability engineering and software engineering, but just know that this skill set is by far one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. It's definitely very challenging in understanding the differences in how systems work. And sometimes when you don't have that systems engineering skill set, it is difficult for you to really grasp some of the concepts that get down to the lowest level. But if you have these skill sets or you're developing these skill sets, just know that they will take you far once you're able to combine them together and become a site reliability engineer. Or specifically, what I've always taught to my mentees and students is that the knowledge you gain is the true asset. And I mentioned that earlier because the asset itself can never be taken away. If I learn how to write a code or write in a programming language, nobody can ever take that away from me. I can go find a job tomorrow writing in Python and Go and stuff like that, or understanding how the operating system works, right? Becoming a subject matter expert in the operating system, that knowledge can never be taken away. Yes, it has iterated and continues to iterate because there's always a newer version that comes out, but at least my foundational understanding of how the operating system is allowing me to be able to iterate faster and build systems at a higher level servicing the world. I mean, when you look at my profile, it says that I, specialize in hold on, jeez.